everyone, and welcome to episode 1 of Chad Talks Sports. This is October 13th, 2021, and we have a pretty good schedule for episode 1. So we got the MLB playoffs, which is kicked off this week. We got NFL, some talk about week 5 and upcoming week 6. We have the start of hockey for the Seattle Kraken and some other teams. And then we have the Nascar playoffs, some fights, and the round of 8 now coming up. And we'll look back on the round of 12. And we also will have a bonus segment later on in the show. And you'll just have to wait and see what that is. And starting with the MLB playoffs, wildcard matchup number 1 was the Red Sox versus the Yankees. The Red Sox had 2 home runs. Verdugo put up 3 RBIs without a home run in that one, as they would go on to win 6-2. Next, we move on to wildcard game number 2 between the Dodgers and the Cardinals. That one was tightly contested until the end when Chris Taylor hit a walk-off home run to win it. That was a 2-run bomb, scoring Bellinger from second, and they would move on and play the San Francisco Giants in the NLDS. As now, the NL and AL Divisional Series games, where we had the Atlanta Braves taking care of the Milwaukee Brewers in that NLDS Series number 1. Then we had the Houston Astros take down the Chicago White Sox, also 3-1 in the AL. And also in the AL, we had the Boston Red Sox defeating the Tampa Bay Rays 3-1 in that one. As we have one more divisional series that has not been decided. That is in Game 5, the Dodgers versus Giants tomorrow, as that will be a very good Game 5 matchup. I was excited to see what happens in that one. As we should have a playoff bracket hopefully popping on the screen for you guys right now to see, as we have one more divisional series game, then on to the championship series. As moving on to the NFL, we had a crazy week 5, especially for those kickers, where there was a combined 26 missed field goals and extra points between all of them. A lot of those came in the Packers versus Bengals game, which ended up going into overtime, where the Packers would end up taking it 25-22. Moving on to some other important NFL games, where the Bills between the Chiefs and the Bills end up winning that one on Sunday Night Football 38-20, what some considered an upset and what others considered the Bills rising up and taking this AFC for themselves, as the Chiefs have had a terrible start so far, as they are just not looking good. I think it's all in their defense personally. They still have that amazing offense with Mahomes and Hill and Kelsey. And Mahomes hasn't looked the best, but he's still an MVP candidate. So I feel like it's just their defense is falling apart, especially within that Bills game. They lost Chris Jones, which was a big one, and their secondary just got beat up all game. And then we had another primetime game between the Rams and the Seahawks. That one finished off 26-17, and that one was huge for all of the Seattle Seahawks as a whole, because not only did their defense fall apart in the receiving game, but also their offense fell apart literally with Russell Wilson going down. He ended up having surgery on that finger, and he will be out for at least a month. So that means Geno Smith going to have to come in and step up for the Seattle Seahawks team, who is already looking like their playoffs are gone. But you never know. I mean, Geno Smith showed signs of light at the end of that game when he drove them down the field for a big touchdown, but their defense just couldn't hold them. And then we had some non-primetime games, but I guess it was primetime for people in Europe, between the Jets and the Falcons, where the Falcons would end up taking that 27-20 in London. Not very many exciting stories in that game, as it's the Falcons and the Jets, so you can't really expect much exciting there. I feel like maybe in the next couple years they're going to finally start putting in some really good teams for those London games, as we're going to have some fun matchups, hopefully in the upcoming years. And then we had a game between two 3-1 teams, and the Chargers versus the Browns. The Chargers would end up taking it with a final score of 47-42. Very high-scoring game. Herbert did amazing. Eckler did pretty good for those Chargers, and so did Mike Williams. But they really need to get Keenan Allen more involved. And then on the Browns side of the ball, they had Baker Mayfield, who they really just didn't seem to trust in the final seconds of the game, where they had a 3rd and 10. They were leading by 2, and they ended up not passing the ball on 3rd and 10. Inside 5 minutes to go, they ended up handing it off, didn't get the first down, gave it to the Chargers, who drove down the field and won the football game in that one. And then finally, of the Week 5 games, we had Monday Night Football, which came down to the wire, where the Ravens' first half were held to 3 points. They didn't do well at all. And then they finally brought it together in the second half, stringing out a ton of yards, ton of points, and the final score was 25-31 in overtime, as the Ravens ended up forcing an overtime with a big touchdown towards the end, and they ended up driving down the field in overtime and scoring and winning that game. Now, staying on the topic of NFL, but not the games, we had John Gruden, who came out as sending racial emails to some people in the NFL a few years ago, and he ended up resigning as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, and he was also taken out of Tampa Bay Buccaneers' Ring of Honor, even though he was the winningest coach in Tampa Bay Buccaneers history. And in my opinion, I think it is a good thing that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers saw that and took him out of the Ring of Honor. And I thought that he was going to get fired as head coach before he would have resigned, but he ended up resigning prior to them firing him, and maybe they wouldn't have fired him. I guess we'll never know. And now moving on to the NHL, where we had the Kraken versus the Vegas Golden Knights, and the Kraken first ever game in franchise history, as they took over for the former Seattle team, which was taken out of the league a while ago, as they ended up actually winning the first ever Stanley Cup in NHL history. But now Seattle fans are hoping the Kraken can win this Stanley Cup, as they got off to a pretty rough start in that game. First period didn't score any points. They ended up going down 3-0 early. And then Ryan Donato scores the first goal in Seattle Kraken history. That'll go down in the history books. And they end up forcing a comeback, tying the game 3-3. And then Vegas ended up scoring on a goal that was very questionable for being maybe a kicking into the net instead of using his stick. But they called it a good goal. In my opinion, I think he kicked the puck into the net. He moved his foot just far enough forward, and they said he angled it, but I think he moved it towards the puck, and I think it should have been a no-goal. But then again, that's why I'm not a hockey ref, so clearly they saw something that we didn't. But the Vegas Golden Knights would go on to hold them, and that final score was 4-3 in the Kraken's first ever game. And now, before we move on to NASCAR, we do have that bonus segment that I was telling you guys about, and it is involving the NBA. It is some news that I saw today, and I will probably be popping up a photo on the screen of it, as it was Tyler Hero who did well for the Heat in their championship game run back during the bubble. And he was saying how he thinks he is on the same level as Zion, Ja, and the rest of the young stars. And personally, in my humble opinion, I don't think he is there. I think he had a good rookie season, and I think he could pan out, but he had a rough year last year. Just wasn't really seeming like the bubble hero that we saw. And so I don't think he is on their level, but I do think if he does as well as he did in that bubble playoff run, that I think he can get to that level eventually and possibly become an all-star. And moving on to NASCAR now, where we had the round of 12 just wrapping up this past week. As in that round of 12, we had quite a bit of fighting going on between Chase Elliott and Kevin Harvick, where in the race at Bristol, Elliott was fighting with Harvick, even though Elliott was a lap down, and Harvick was in the lead. Elliott's teammate Kyle Larson was in second place, and Elliott started getting in trying to block Harvick, and Harvick ended up losing momentum, losing speed, and Larson ended up passing him on the final lap of the race and winning. And that kind of angered Harvick, so in this last race at the Charlotte Roval, as after that race, they got in a little fight. No fists were thrown at each other. They're just talking. It looked like it was going to happen, but then it got broken up. And then at this last race at the Charlotte Roval, we saw Kevin Harvick turn Chase Elliott. Ton of damage on that 9 car. And he ended up spinning backwards and actually hitting the field, causing a big wreck. Harvick would actually go on to get knocked out of the round of 8 in that race, and Elliott would move on. And then after the race, Elliott made a comment that we will put on the screen right now that I personally think is very hilarious. His quote was, "Merry off-season and happy Christmas," which is a very good roast. I think that we might see some little fighting going on from them in the round of 8. But I feel like if Harvick does attack Elliott again on the track, he's going to get some consequences, as Elliott is still hoping for that championship season, trying to get that repeat that he had last year. And now on to the round of 8, where Elliott's teammate Larson actually ended up winning that Charlotte Roval race, locking himself into the round of 8 when he was already in. He still just got that win to lock himself in, as it looks like that Kyle Larson will be most likely moving on to the round of 4 championship round, as he has just dominated all year. He's already got a ton of playoff points going into this round, so he pretty much just needs to get a solid top 5 finish, and he is just about locked in to the round of 4, as that should be fun to see who 4 ends up being, because it looks like our top 2 is going to be Hamlin and Larson. I'm excited to see who 3 and 4 will be, though, as right now Blaney and Truex are taking up those spots. But we have quite a few drivers that are really close in playoff points and could battle back in these round of 8 races to end up sealing themselves into the championship round. But personally, I think that Larson is going to win the championship, and I'm not being biased because I'm a Larson fan here. I am just saying just how good of a season he has had. I do think it'll be a good fight between Hamlin and Larson there in the championship race, but I do think Larson will end up taking it, and it will be back-to-back seasons with a Hendrick Motorsports driver winning this NASCAR Cup Series championship. As thanks to everyone for watching this first ever episode of Chad Talks Sports. This is October 13th, 2021 for those of you watching post. And I have been Chad Grebe. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.